in their compound to a different gang leader. She's now afraid she could lose contact with her altogether.
She will not be able to contact us anymore. She's alive, but I cannot do anything to save her.
That's it for this edition of Assignment on the BBC World Service. It was written and produced by me, Ed Butler. The studio production was by Rod Farker, and the series editor is Penny Murphy.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho, and this is CBC Radio 1.
Magandang umaga, good morning, Manitoba. Faith Fundal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, everywhere on the CBC Listen app, and, of course, on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. We'll have lots to come on the program today. First, let's head to your CBC Winnipeg local news desk, and Heather Wells joining us now. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the latest military-led evacuation in northern Manitoba may be complete, but Canadian Armed Forces members haven't left yet. They're sticking around in case people need to be airlifted from St. Teresa Point and Wasagamak. We're going to hear from the operation manager, who says it was intense getting thousands out of Garden Hill. That story coming up as well. Winnipeg's 38th annual Fringe Festival is now underway at Old Market Square. This year's theme is Choose Your Own Fringe Adventure. You can choose from 140 shows at different downtown venues. We're going to hear from the Fringe Fest manager, who says there is something for everyone. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 6:30.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Abby Adiemi is on the controls today. Sierra Sanders, our studio director, and of course our live team streaming us on television, well, on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream, and of course shortly on CBC television. Lots to come here in the program. In our 7 o'clock hour, police have arrested 2 people after a series of vehicle thefts involving a tow truck. We'll hear from one of the victims, who is still hoping she'll get her stolen truck back. In our last half hour of the program, a team of scientists has been chasing storms across the U.S. We'll find out what the scientists hope to learn from collecting, measuring, and sometimes even eating hailstorms. Stay tuned for that. Also, we sent the CBC's Jim Agapito to get a sneak peek at Manitoba's first ever ground-level virtual production studio that can transform any idea into an all-encompassing environment for the camera. Stay tuned for that coming up at 7:40. Sun and cloud mixture expected today for Winnipeg, high of 23 degrees. Some foggy patches dissipating this morning as well. We do have some weather warnings in place for parts of the listening region. Air quality warnings for the PA, Flin Flon, Thompson, Norway House. There are statements as well in effect for Victoria Beach. All those details coming up after World Report.
On Cue with Tom Power. The British rapper Little Simz has performed for thousands of people around the world, even took home the coveted Mercury Prize for Best British Album in 2022. So why, for her new album, did she almost quit music? Little Simz will be here to tell you her story.
I don't think anyone's ever seen anything like me. I have to do this, you know?
That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young. Today's C5 summit in Ottawa could set the tone for government Indigenous relations for the rest of Mark Carney's time as Prime Minister. His government passed a bill allowing energy and infrastructure projects to be approved faster before Indigenous consultation. And today, Carney will have to defend the move to more than 600 First Nations leaders. As David Thurton reports, some chiefs are on board with the new legislation, but many are not.
Let me say this plainly. Bill C5 violates the spirit and intent of our treaties.
Angela Levasseur is the chief of the Nissequoiastic Cree Nation in Manitoba. Ahead of the meeting with the Prime Minister, she and other First Nation leaders made their concerns known.
Bill C5 gives the federal government sweeping powers to push through so-called projects of national interest, such as pipelines, ports, and transmission lines.
Not all chiefs at the gathering feel that way.
It's very simple. I'm here to support the bill.
Clarence Easter is the chief of the Chimamawin Cree Nation, also in Manitoba.
He's willing to work with us and we're willing to be there to work with him, and we can build this country together.
The government has signaled it has a strong desire to fast-track Indigenous-owned or backed projects. But that eagerness runs up against this harsh reality.
Really, the big barrier is a lot of Indigenous communities, as a legacy of Canada's colonial past, do not have access to traditional capital.
Fernando Mello works with Indigenous communities at the Canadian Renewable Energy Association.
They cannot put necessarily assets up for sale. Any of the land that is held in trust for them by the Crown, they can't put forward as collateral for a loan to start a business.
Carney's need for speed faces roadblocks, not just on the Indigenous rights file, but potentially on the financial front as well. David Thornton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Remember when Pierre Poilievre told CBC News he lost his Ottawa riding because he was honest about plans to cut the federal bureaucracy? The head of Canada's largest federal public sector union is disputing that. She says there is another reason the Conservative leader didn't win his seat. As Benjamin Lopez-Stephen reports, she says a lot of it had to do with Donald Trump.
I think it's more than just the jobs. I think it's about protecting Canada.
Sharon D'Souza says Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's explanation for why he lost his riding of Carleton is too simplistic. She's the national president of the Public Service Alliance of Canada. The union represents more than 200,000 people, including federal workers. Last week, Poilievre said groups like hers cost him his seat over his pledge to cut federal workers.
And they ran a very aggressive campaign, particularly the public sector unions did, to defeat me on that basis.
D'Souza says voters linked Poilievre to Donald Trump and his mass firings.
If I look at the bigger picture, if Trump wasn't elected, if Doge didn't get public services, do I think that would have influenced the federal election? Without a doubt. It changed the game.
D'Souza suggests Poilievre may need to do more reflection.
I feel like maybe, it's easier to blame the federal public service than it is to say maybe I'm out of touch with those constituents.
The Conservative leader argues he was honest about his plan to cut federal workers, and the Liberals were not. D'Souza says she's hopeful the Prime Minister will find other ways to save money. Benjamin Lopez-Stephen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Mr. Blumenthal, Ms. Blunt-Rochester, Mr. Booker.
An overnight vote in the U.S. Senate brings the Trump administration's $9 billion cuts package one step closer to reality. Senators narrowly passed the so-called rescissions package just before 3 a.m. Eastern Time. It cancels already approved funding for programs that help foreign countries with disease, war, and natural disasters, and funding to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. The organization supports NPR, PBS, and their member stations. The Senate vote is seen as a victory for Trump and his promise to reduce federal spending. The House of Representatives will hold a final vote on the package later today. Thousands of people in Manitoba are still waiting to find out when they can go home. The province's worst wildfire season in 30 years has uprooted families and entire communities. The relocation has been an adjustment for those who were also forced to leave their way of life behind. As Karen Pauls reports, they may be far away from their traditional land, but for some of them, a little taste of home is making the situation more bearable.
Volunteers cut up huge chunks of fresh moose meat, part of a traditional meal for First Nations elders forced from their homes by wildfires. Grace Moss is with the Manitoba Kiiwetinoong Okimakanak Harvester Program.
You are what you eat, right? Food is life.
During the first mass evacuation last month, local groups teamed up to source meat, duck, fish, and vegetables. They're feeding about 200 elders every day. Lester Balfour is with Food Matters Manitoba.
When you're in the city so long and you're craving the wild food and home-cooked meals, and they've been here so long, so maybe give them a little bit of that taste of home, I guess you could say. And
roughly 12,000 Manitobans are out of their homes due to wildfires. 1 in 10 are living in group shelters set up in indoor soccer complexes and hockey rinks. Some show me photos of the food they've been getting: wrinkled wieners, dry potatoes, wilted lettuce. Which is why these elders are so thrilled to get the moose meal delivered, complete with Saskatoon apple crumble for dessert.
Look at
Teresa Biggity of the Matthias Colomb Cree Nation has been living in this Winnipeg hotel since the end of May.
We like their food, MKO, when they come and feed us.
It's a piece of home, some comfort, at a time when all of that feels in short supply. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
RCMP are naming the man they arrested for allegedly stealing a plane from the Victoria International Airport. 39-year-old Shahir Qasim has been charged with one count of hijacking. The Mounties say they're still investigating, but they believe the suspect had an ideological motive to disrupt airspace. There are reports he posted on social media saying he was a messenger of Allah sent to save humanity from climate change. More Canadians are getting injured by e-scooters. A new report shows those injuries are increasingly happening to people not taking proper care while riding or getting hit while on one. The CBC's Jennifer Lagrassa has more on how riders can stay safe.
Everyone sharing the road has a role to play in keeping it safe.
Tanya Khan is a manager at the Canadian Institute for Health Information. Their recent data shows that between April 2023 and March 2024, about 1,000 people were hospitalized from scooter injuries. Half of those were related to e-scooters, a 32% increase from the year before.
Some unintentional injuries are really predictable and preventable.
Helmet use is very poor.
Daniel Rosenfield is an emergency room doctor at Sick Kids in Toronto. He says on average it's 12-year-olds and boys in their teens coming into the ER with injuries that range from minor to severe, like head trauma and internal bleeding.
The majority of the catastrophic injuries, though, are caused when a car hits a person on an e-scooter or they hit a car at high speed.
Parents should keep in mind that these are not toys.
Pamela Fuseli is the president of injury prevention charity Parachute. She says young kids shouldn't be riding or jumping on with another person. Each province has their own e-scooter regulations, like how old riders need to be and who should wear a helmet.
Enforcement is such a key component to preventing injuries.
To stay safe, she says all riders should wear helmets and follow the rules of the road. Jennifer Lagrassa, CBC News, Toronto.
In Canada, drivers typically try to avoid those rumble strips on the side of the road. In the United Arab Emirates, drivers have a reason to intentionally drive over them, at least on one stretch of highway. Listen carefully to this. That is Beethoven's Ode to Joy, played on the rumble strip. It works with strategically spaced grooves carved right into the asphalt. What do you think? As good as the original? Not exactly, but the UAE says this is part of a project to bring more music into daily life. It is not the only musical road in the world. Japan, Hungary, and the United States have also built musical rumble strips. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
I'm being more conscious and actually looking, say, for produce, for example, where was it grown? If it's U.S., it's like, I put it back. Really, it's important to support local, and I don't want to support their craziness, as I'll put it.
Not really. I just try to be a smart consumer. I don't go out of my way to differentiate. If I want orange juice, I want orange juice. Most of our goods come from Canada anyway.
Actually, I don't have a lot of buying power. I'm in that social class that doesn't have a lot of buying power. But if I did, hypothetically, I would, because of the situation going on between Trump and the tariffs and everything, and how difficult he's making it for Canadians right now. So if I were hypothetically in a more buying power situation, I would definitely pick and choose Canadian over American.
For you, is it more affordability that you're looking at?
Yes, yeah. I'm a disabled person. I'm a mental health consumer myself, and I live on a very low fixed income. So I have to live very simply.
I actually actively make sure if I'm researching something online that it's made in Canada or elsewhere.
Why are you doing this?
2 reasons. I think it's better to buy Canadian. The second, I like to buy local. So I'm actually from Calgary, Alberta, and so I will try and look for products or stores that are Calgarian or Albertan.
Patriotism, perhaps, and self-preservation. Self-preservation of the self of the country, I would say.
And has all of this with the trade war made you think more about buying local?
Absolutely.
How easy or hard is that?
Harder in some places than others, sort of depending on what kinds of goods you're buying. Produce and things that you get at a farmer's market would be easier.
Some things can be a little bit challenging to find. And some things we just can't find at all. Like there's a lot of things at Costco that there's no equivalent in Canadian made.
We're from Vancouver, so it's a little bit easier to do that. Plus with online shopping and stuff, it does make it a bit easier sometimes too.
And has this changed any plans in terms of travel potentially for the future?
Not that I had any plans to go to the U.S., but actively looking at vacation now and will not be going to the U.S.
Not really. I tend to avoid traveling to the U.S. anyway, so in that case, no.
It makes us think twice and not depends on where we go. My wife have recently traveled to the States and we were concerned a little bit, but it worked out great. So we're not trying to get into the idea that Americans are bad. It's just the administration is causing concerns. Americans are still great people. So.
Thanks very much to the CBC's Andrew Lamb for that piece.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want. On Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1. Local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
Just before 10 minutes before 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, I'm Faith Fundal. Meta is pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into its superintelligence lab and even cherry-picking top execs from competitors like OpenAI and Apple. The goal? Dominate the race to AI. Frances Sims is CBC's artificial intelligence columnist, also Associate Dean of the Faculty of Applied Sciences and Technology at Humber Polytechnic. Frances joins us by Zoom now. Good morning. Hello.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
What exactly do we mean when we say super intelligence?
Yeah, it sounds kind of scary, but really, plainly speaking, it's when AI can do pretty much anything much better than we can. You know, maybe like 5-10 years ago, some listeners might have seen, I think IBM Watson, an early version of AI, beat Ken Jennings in Jeopardy, right? So in that case, it was better than Ken Jennings. We've seen AI be better in chess, in Go, in different scenarios. And it's starting to happen everywhere. So we'll have this concept of general intelligence, artificial general intelligence, where it's the same as us. And then the next step will be that it's better than us. And let me give you an example of how it might work. So say you have a lung issue and you go to the doctor to try to figure it out. Well, you might have to wait a while to go see the doctor because it's just hard in Canada. And then you get an X-ray, and then the doctor, finally gets back to you. They look at the X-ray and they say, based on their experience and other case studies that they know or other colleagues, that it's this. Maybe, hopefully, it's not cancer. Maybe it's pneumonia. That's what happens today. And it takes a long time. Now, with AI, just in the next couple of years, what will likely happen is you'll take that chest X-ray, it'll automatically get uploaded to this database, and AI will look at it, compare it against chest X-rays from across Canada and maybe the world, and say, this is likely what you have. Maybe it'll say, yeah, Newfoundland, there was somebody that had something very similar, and this is what it was. And it'll give that prediction to the doctor. So no longer is the doctor starting from scratch. They're starting with a draft. I mean, that's what we see with ChatGPT is it does drafts all the time. But the doctor has to check. But that's great. Now, with superintelligence, maybe what'll happen is AI will come along and say, you never need to do the X-ray. Why are we doing that? It's a terrible idea. I'm just going to give you this little breathalyzer tube. You can do it at home and then mail it in. And then while you're waiting for the doctor's response, maybe AI will automatically solve cancer, and they'll say, here's a pill that'll cure your cancer. And it's specific for you, which sounds even better. But we want to make sure that that pill actually cures the cancer and it's not a poison pill, which is what we worry about when we think about, super intelligence.
Right. I mean, if this is the direction we're heading, and it seems like it is, how much longer do you think it'll take before it's a reality?
Yeah, some experts say just within 5 to 10 years. So between 2030 and 2040, we're going to see the rise of superintelligence. Now, it may not be better than us in every single way. And it's not necessarily going to be sentient. It's not going to be alive. Hopefully, it won't care if we unplug it or plug it back in.
Right.
But concept is that it'll be better at doing certain things than we will be. Like, for example, maybe it'll be better at managing forest fires because it'll be better able to look at satellite imagery and predict what's going to happen. And it may come up with some sort of land management tool or process that helps us to prevent forest fires. So not only will it better predict those forest fires, but it may be better able to mitigate them and resolve them than we are. That's kind of the idea.
Who are we who are we up against in this race to superintelligence?
We're up against the big tech firms. So you think about Meta, Google, OpenAI. They're the ones that are the leaders from a private sector perspective, along with the U.S. government. In China, China's also a leader. The U.S. tried to slow down China by restricting access to chipsets. That didn't work. China still went ahead and developed some pretty awesome AI platforms. And then after that, it's probably Europe. And then Canada is somewhere in the mix, maybe number 3, maybe number 4. So we're there, and we're there in part because we have lots of great universities developing this talent, universities and colleges. But the problem is, as soon as somebody comes out, they're being scooped up by these big tech firms. So it becomes problematic for us in terms of creating that ecosystem because we're losing the talent down south.
I mean, when you see all of that talent going down south, I mean, how do you compete, I guess, is the big question.
Yeah, it's really tough. And I think what we have to focus on is thinking about what we do in our own communities best and the challenges that we're facing that are unique, and then trying to find a way to pair that with AI. So I'll give you an example. Sadly, across Canada, we're experiencing a lot of forest fires. We've had that in the last few years. But maybe there's some way, some management technique or something we can do there that would, we could create an AI tool that we could sell to the rest of the world, right? What it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for us to be the next Google or the next Meta in Canada, not for a long time. We have a company called Cohere AI, which is a great Canadian company, but it's not the same as those big tech firms. And so what we can do is focus on creating our own innovations. Maybe in the East Coast, it's going to be the fisheries. That'll give us a seat at that table so that we can try to influence it because, we have to be invited to the table to be able to influence these global leaders. And that means we have to have something of value to bring.
I know it's not the same thing, the digital services tax that was taken away. Is legislation or regulation something that is an effective tool in dealing with this?
100%. I mean, what the digital service tax showed is that it hit the pocketbook of those big tech firms. And so although, Prime Minister Carney got rid of it, it was clear that it was working somehow. In Europe, they have a tax, and that tax is very effective. And, those big tech firms don't like it. So that's where we have to hit it. So I think if we can band together with Europe and some of these other countries and put some regulations in place, like, for example, regulation really just means testing. we want to make sure it's tested properly before it gets deployed. So like a drug, you get a new drug, a new pharmaceutical drug. Well, it's gone through testing that's maybe 5 years before it actually gets released. That's really important because we know that by the time we get it, it's likely going to have very limited side effects. We need to have that same mentality. But the reality is that the testing slows things down. And that's why those big tech firms don't want it, because they want to be first. It's not that they don't want it. They want regulation, but they don't want to slow down because they want to be first to market. So implementing them at the pocketbook level, I think, is one of the best ways to do it, like the digital service tax, to your point.
Francis, thanks for this, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this. Take care.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
That is Francis Sims, our tech columnist, also Associate Dean of the Faculty of Applied Sciences and Technology at Humber Polytechnic. Let's head to your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Heather Wells joining us with a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a rural municipality is pushing back against what its mayor says are increasingly abusive comments being posted on its Facebook page. The RM of Alexander recently posted a notice warning it will no longer tolerate inappropriate comments. The notice says the RM's been dealing with bullying and personal attacks, abusive language, and harassment and threats towards staff. A new summer program in Brandon is introducing racialized youth to the world of local government. We'll hear about Youth Rise in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. We're at about 2.5 minutes before 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. If you have any issues on your commute, please call our commuter line hands-free or pull over to the side to let us know. 204-788-3093, 204-788-3093. Goodbye to the folks watching us on CBC Television. You can, of course, find us streaming on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream or on our website as well, cbc.ca/Manitoba. And stay tuned because still to come, we'll hear about a new virtual reality studio that is opening up bigger film ideas, only possible in studios outside of Manitoba. That's coming up later in our next hour of the program. Also, police arresting 2 people after a series of vehicle thefts involving a tow truck. You've been hearing about this on your CBC Winnipeg News. We'll hear from one of the victims, still hoping she can get her stolen truck back. First, though, have you ever wanted to utilize Sage but don't know the proper protocol? The Canadian Museum for Human Rights is holding a workshop to help people understand the relationship we have with the plant. It's coming up next here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the app and on YouTube as well. Abby Ediemi on the control, Sierra Sanders, our studio director, and our live stream team as well. Stay tuned. World Report is standing by.
On the Current.
I'm Megan Williams. Canada's top scientist is calling for more research into UFOs and for people to be able to report sightings without fear of stigmatization. Aliens or not, a look at what's going on in our skies on The Current.
The Current, this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Today's C5 summit in Ottawa could set the tone for the government Indigenous relations for the rest of Mark Carney's time as Prime Minister. His government passed a bill allowing energy and infrastructure projects to be approved faster before Indigenous consultation. And today, Carney will have to defend the move to more than 600 First Nations leaders. As David Thurton reports, some chiefs are on board with the new legislation, but many are not.
Let me say this plainly. Bill C5 violates the spirit and intent of our treaties.
Angela Levasseur is the chief of the Nisquetuk Cree Nation in Manitoba. Ahead of the meeting with the Prime Minister, she and other First Nation leaders made their concerns known.
Bill C5 gives the federal government sweeping powers to push through so-called projects of national interest, such as pipelines, ports, and transmission lines.
Not all chiefs at the gathering feel that way.
It's very simple. I'm here to support the bill.
Clarence Easter is the chief of the Chimamawin Cree Nation, also in Manitoba.
He's willing to work with us, and we're willing to be there to work with him, and we can build this country together.
The government has signaled it has a strong desire to fast-track Indigenous-owned or backed projects. But that eagerness runs up against this harsh reality.
Really, the big barrier is a lot of Indigenous communities, as a legacy of Canada's colonial past, do not have access to traditional capital.
Fernando Mello works with Indigenous communities at the Canadian Renewable Energy Association.
They cannot put necessarily assets up for sale. Any of the land that is held in trust for them by the Crown, they can't put forward as collateral for a loan to start a business.
Carney's need for speed faces roadblocks, not just on the Indigenous rights file, but potentially on the financial front as well. David Thornton, CBC News, Ottawa.
A chaotic scene at the Al Akhli Hospital in Gaza City. Doctors there say 2 women were killed in an attack on the Holy Family Church. Children and the parish priest are among the injured. Officials with the Catholic Church confirm Father Gabriel Romanelli has a minor leg injury. Romanelli was close with the late Pope Francis, speaking often to him during the war in Gaza. Holy Family Church is the only Catholic church in Gaza. It was also damaged in the attack. The strike is being blamed on the Israeli military. The IDF has yet to comment. The Syrian government says it has reached a new ceasefire with leaders of the Druze religious minority. It's not clear if that deal will hold, but the future of Syria could depend on it. This week's outbreak of violence has drawn in military intervention from Israel. It is also threatening to derail Syria's post-war transition. Sasha Petrusik is following developments from Jerusalem.
Convoys of Syrian security forces rolled out of Soweto overnight as a ceasefire seemed to take hold between government troops and Druze fighters. This after days of fighting, clashes between 2 Syrian minorities, the Druze and Bedouin tribes, and a new Islamist central government not trusted to protect minority rights. This morning, interim Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara vowed to end divisions and protect minority freedoms in a televised speech. He also condemned Israeli airstrikes on Damascus and the south as destabilizing, escalating violence instead of stopping it, he said. Israel justifies its attacks as necessary to protect the Druze, who also live in Israel, though others see it as a move to expand its military presence. Streams of Israeli Druze have been crossing the border to help Syrian communities. They don't trust the new Syrian leader because of his roots as a jihadist fighter.
No future for the area, no future for the Middle East, no future for Syria with this kind of people.
But al-Shara is supported by the U.S., which has vowed to use its influence with him and Israel to calm Syria. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Officials in Iraq say more than 60 people are dead in a fire at a new mall. It happened yesterday evening in the eastern city of Kut. Rescuers were able to save 45 people trapped inside the building, but they say more died of suffocation. The 5-story mall opened last week. It had a restaurant and a supermarket. Investigators are still trying to determine what caused the fire. Scientists in the UK say they've made strides in the prevention of a deadly genetic disease. Mitochondrial disease is passed from mother to child. But the birth of several babies using DNA from 3 people is giving researchers new hope. The CBC's Anna Cunningham has more.
I'm a genetic carrier for the mitochondrial disease.
Chloe Russell only discovered she was a carrier of mitochondrial disease when her brother died suddenly and she was tested. But this pioneering treatment is giving her and many others hope.
Mitochondrial diseases are basically diseases where
organs run out of energy.
Explains Professor Doug Turnbull from Newcastle University in northeastern England, where the treatment was researched.
We have focused on trying to prevent the transmission of these diseases.
He says it's a hereditary disease passed from mother to child. This process uses a third DNA with healthy mitochondria added in vitro from a donor egg. Professor Bobby McFarland is director of the Mitochondrial Disorder Service. He says the success of this treatment is a game changer.
You now have an option that allows you to have children that are genetically your own, but without the risk of passing on that mitochondrial disease.
Parents of the 8 babies successfully born from this treatment have remained anonymous. They say it has freed them from uncertainty and the emotional burden of mitochondrial disease.
I would love to have my own children.
Says Chloe Russell. With this 3-person technique, scientists have now given her the real chance that can happen. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
The British government says it will allow people as young as 16 years old to vote in the next general election. And this morning on the streets of London, young people are enthusiastic about the idea.
I think it's really important to give the younger generation an opinion and a vote on a lot of the issues that are facing the UK.
I think it's a great opportunity for us to sort of have more of a say in our future. Because at the end of the day, we decide who we vote in, and then this can then affect sort of decisions that affect us.
I completely agree with this, I don't see why not.
16-year-olds are already allowed to vote in Scotland and Wales. Extending that is a key part of the British Labour government's mandate. It says it wants to ensure young people's voices will be heard. Thousands of people in Manitoba are still waiting to find out when they can go home. The province's worst wildfire season in 30 years has uprooted families and entire communities. The relocation has been an adjustment for those who were also forced to leave their way of life behind. Many are far away from their traditional land, but as Karen Pauls reports, a little taste of home is making the situation more bearable.
Volunteers cut up huge chunks of fresh moose meat, part of a traditional meal for First Nations elders forced from their homes by wildfires. Grace Moss is with the Manitoba Kiiwetinowi Okimakanak Harvester Program.
You are what you eat, right? Food is life.
During the first mass evacuation last month, local groups teamed up to source meat, duck, fish, and vegetables. They're feeding about 200 elders every day. Lester Balfour is with Food Matters Manitoba.
When you're in the city so long and you're craving the wild food and home-cooked meals, and they've been here so long, so maybe give them a little bit of that taste of home, I guess you could say. And
roughly 12,000 Manitobans are out of their homes due to wildfires. 1 in 10 are living in group shelters set up in indoor soccer complexes and hockey rinks. Some show me photos of the food they've been getting: wrinkled wieners, dry potatoes, wilted lettuce. Which is why these elders are so thrilled to get the moose meal delivered, complete with Saskatoon apple crumble for dessert.
Look at that.
Teresa Biggity of the Matthias Colomb Cree Nation has been living in this Winnipeg hotel since the end of May.
We like their food, MKO, when they come and feed us.
It's a piece of home, some comfort, at a time when all of that feels in short supply. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And you can check the CBC News Climate Dashboard for live updates on wildfire smoke, active fires, and air quality across the country. That's at cbc.ca/climate. That is World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
than what you need. Well, if you're using the whole part of the plant, then you're going to be doing that.
How do people sign up for the workshops?
So they can actually go on to the CMHR website. You're going to go to upcoming events. And I believe I'm the first one on the page right now. And then they can register there. So we do have a cap of 25 people per month because, of course, we do have a new moon every month and or a full moon every month. And so because we also do the activities, and again, being this month, we're going to be making medicine picking bags. We want to make sure that we have enough supplies for all the people that come, right? The other thing is that we also do have a sharing circle because when we do traditional teachings, we need to actually use all 5 of our senses for us to really understand that teaching. So, the sight and the hearing is very simple, right? But we also use the smell and the taste. We have traditional teas and we have a light snack as well, because sometimes when you're like, if you're even eating a cookie and you're like, oh yeah, last time I ate this was when I was at those teachings and this is what I learned. And it can be a jog right back to teachings that you have been to. And then of course, finally that one of touch. And that's why we do the activities with people so that, they're actually, and it's something that they can take away and reminding themselves that when they are actually going to do medicine picking, that they're doing it in they're following proper protocol, right? That they're not damaging the plant, they're not taking all of the medicine, right? Right now, like when you go into most people's medicine cabinets, you'll see like old prescriptions and old this and that. But what we're taught is that we don't stockpile things. You only take from the earth what you need, right? So you should never have a cabinet full of medicines, right? And you only take that small amount because, again, you're not the only person using that medicine, right? And we need to be respectful to make sure that there's enough medicine for other people, but also the animals, right? Because they too eat that medicine, right? So again, it's that reciprocal relationship that we have and that our kinship, that we are just a small piece in the big circle of life.
Marilyn, thank you for the work that you do and for making time today.
For sure. Have a great day.
Take good care. Marilyn Dykstra, Cree Knowledge Keeper. As you heard, if you want to sign up, you can do so through the Canadian Museum for Human Rights website. That's humanrights.ca. Humanrights.ca.
On This is Manitoba, we celebrate who we are, and we lean into the challenges here that can make this place even better. I'm Marcy Marcusa, host of This is Manitoba. On the podcast, we tackle one topic in a new episode every Friday. It's always about us, the news, and the people here. Get into some local listening. Find and follow This is Manitoba wherever you get your podcasts.
Personally, from CBC Podcasts, allows you to get lost in someone else's life. From a mysterious childhood spent on the run to a courageous escape from domestic violence, each season of Personally invites you to explore the human experience in all its complexity, one story or season at a time. This is what it sounds like to be human. Find Personally on the CBC Listen app and everywhere you get your podcasts.
24 minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and of course everywhere on the app and on our CBC Manitoba YouTube page. Thanks for joining us and for welcoming us into your with your morning routine. If that routine includes driving or commuting, thanks as well for letting us join your headphones, earphones, and your speakers. Speaking of which, if you see any issues on your commute, do give us a call. Our commuter line is 204-788-3093, 204-788-3093. Sierra Sanders, our studio director, is standing by for your phone call. Abby Adeyemi is on the controls today, and I am Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. Someone else who's here joining us now is Scott Reguer from your CBC National Sports Desk. A happy Baby Friday.
Yeah. Friday Eve. Friday Junior.
Yep.
Baby, they all work. We have a certain theme going there that I like.
We're almost there.
Mm-hmm.
One of golf's most revered events is underway this morning. What's the latest from the Open?
Well, some proper Northern Irish weather, Faith, with thunder showers in the offing. So far, Denmark's Jakob Oleson's the early leader, with Corey Connors the top Canadian. Royal Portrush is located on the Atlantic coast, a defining feature of the links-style courses that have always hosted the Open. Large dunes, thick rough, heavy winds, all part of the terrain, which is what golf legend Jack Nicklaus says makes them so tricky.
If you really play well and play smart, you're playing by where the bunkers are. You're going to probably take a couple of chances during the week, but most of the time you don't. What I won at Muirfield. Last day I had a little wind in my face and I knocked it right in a friggin' bunker. It almost cost me the tournament. Discipline is such an important part of playing over here. Once you get frustrated, then say, bye-bye, we'll see you next time.
So the Canadian contingent will try to keep calm and carry on. Joining Connors are Taylor Pendrith, Nick Taylor, and Mackenzie Hughes. Hughes' Faith has the best ever showing by a Canuck at this event. The Hamilton native finished 6th back in 2021.
And to tennis now, where it is the end of an era.
2 years ago, Eugenie Bouchard was junior Wimbledon champion. 7-6. As a senior, she has a chance to become champion.
The sound faith of Eugenie Bouchard winning a spot in the Wimbledon final back in 2014. At the time, she was the first Canadian to reach the title match of a Grand Slam singles event. Bouchard announced her pending retirement yesterday. She will wrap up her career at her hometown tournament, next month's Canadian Open in Montreal. The director of that event, Valerie Tetreault, says Bouchard will leave behind an impressive legacy.
Jeannie paved the way for Bianca, Layla. I remember in her best moments, a lot more young girls wanted to play tennis. That was the feedback we were getting from Tennis Montreal, Tennis Quebec, and that's what we were seeing actually across the country. And even for the tournament, in terms of our Ball Kids program, all of a sudden there were a lot more girls wanting to be a ball kid at our event, and that was all the Jeannie Bouchard effect.
That effect, Faith, was only enhanced by her many accomplishments, winning a WTA Tour title, leading Canada to a first-ever Billie Jean King Cup, and reaching number 5 in the world at one point. But as you heard Valerie Tetreault mention there, her biggest impact is on the legions of young players she drew to the sport. A country full of visor-wearing girls hitting the ball early from the baseline, just like she did. And then there's her famous fan following, Jeannie's Army. Safe to say, as she hangs up her sneakers at 31, Eugenie Bouchard's going to be missed, Faith.
I think so, indeed. Week 7 of the CFL season begins tonight in Montreal. What are you going to be watching for?
Well, an Argonauts team, Faith, that's borderline desperate for a win. The defending Grey Cup champs are near the bottom of the division and still waiting for their star quarterback Chad Kelly to return from injury. Montreal, meanwhile, have a winning record and will welcome back their star QB, Davis Alexander, tonight. But that's not the most talked about addition where the Alouettes are concerned. They're being linked with defensive lineman Sean Lemon. Lemon has been suspended since last year for violating the league's gambling policy. Asked whether he would still be willing to sign Lemon to a contract when he's eligible, here's what Alouettes coach Jason Maas said.
We just won't comment on him right now. He's not a part of our team just yet. But I think everybody that knows us and how we feel about Sean, it hasn't changed. He's been tremendous in our locker room. We had him to the very end till he was suspended. And obviously there's a relationship that's been built over time with him. And again, he's been nothing short of amazing when he's been in our building. And I think everybody would say that to a man.
Now that may all be true, Faith, but Sean Lemon bet on CFL games, including on his own team. Doing that has resulted in lifetime suspensions for players in the NBA and MLB. Heck, one of the best baseball players in history, Pete Rose, was banned from the Hall of Fame for it. So for me, it's not the best look for the CFL, and I'm sure it's something the panel on TSN will be looking at tonight, including, and this is some very welcome news to end on, Milt Stegall rejoining the panel. Milt, in June, lost tragically his 20-year-old son, Chase. He loves his job, and you can tell by the way he does it, and we welcome Milt Stegall back tonight.
Scott, thanks for this, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good.
Scott Reguer from your CBC National Sports Desk. I'm Faith Wendell. More to come after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's 10 degrees right now, still on the cool side for mid-July, a high today of 23 with a mix of sun and clouds. A political observer says voters in Western Manitoba no doubt notice NDP making moves in their constituency. Premier Rob Canoe was in Brandon yesterday, announcing funding to train doctors in Brandon. It was the fifth appearance by the Premier or his cabinet in southwest Manitoba since May. In that time, the NDP has announced or re-announced $334 million in funding for the area. Brandon University political scientist Kelly Saunders questions the timing of these announcements.
We are heading into a by-election at some point. It has to be held by September. And to see this flurry of activity and announcements, I'm sure is going to raise some questions in some voters' minds.
The date for a by-election in Spruce Woods has not yet been set. That area has been without an MLA since March. A rural municipality is pushing back against what its mayor says are increasingly abusive comments being posted on its Facebook page. The RM of Alexander recently posted a notice warning it will no longer tolerate inappropriate comments. The notice says the RM has been dealing with bullying and personal attacks, abusive language, and harassment and threats towards staff. The Association of Manitoba Municipalities says it is an issue for local governments right across the province. AMM Executive Director Dennis Volkov says some of the comments are so abusive, some officials don't feel safe in their own homes, and some are considering not seeking re-election.
Many people, of course, don't want to see these attacks towards them, towards their families, and if it's on social media, it's very hard to do anything with these types of attacks.
Volkov says his association is working on a toolkit to help councils deal with online attacks. The Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs says she is hopeful going into today's summit with the Prime Minister. Mark Carney is sitting down with more than 600 Indigenous leaders from across the country. At issue is Bill C-5,
from foreign countries except Mexico and the U.S.
Projects.
It's also investing $70 million to provide training and income support for workers.
Says this
and it will put $1 billion toward helping companies with their projects.
When we think about,
David Fritz is the president and COO of Supreme Steel in
resources from the
Saskatoon.
lands right now.
He says he's pleased with the changes, but he hopes the Prime Minister is still working toward a tariff-free agreement with the U.S.
There's a lot of good things that were announced, things that will help this deal.
But what about today?
But we can't lose sight of our primary focus needs.
Benefiting because we're not.
Wilson says First Nations need to be able to create their own standards and regulations to guide industry when projects may result in pollution. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Canadian Armed Forces members are lingering in Winnipeg just in case they're needed to help more Manitobans flee wildfires. Operation Lentus Air Task Force Commander Craig Greeley says it was 4 intense days getting thousands out of Garden Hill. And Saturday, he says, was very difficult when the decision was made with local leaders to evacuate.
Just hearing the strain, the sadness in their voice as they think about potentially losing everything up there, but knowing that they're safe, at least back here, you know, it's emotional. As my chief would say, it hits you in the feels.
Greeley says the biggest challenge has been determining how many people need help out. He says Hercules aircraft are ready in case thousands more need to be airlifted from St. Teresa Point in Wasagamak. Crews are on standby now in Winnipeg and can be ready within 30 minutes to 2 hours. When he graduates high school, 15-year-old Ahmed Okate wants to be a doctor. He has joined Brandon's new Youth Rise Leadership Program to make that happen. The program aims to empower racialized youth through civic engagement and leadership development. Now, 4 weeks in, Okate says he's already learned a lot that can help with his career goals.
Really helping me to learn how to start my business that I'm planning for, which is hospital, and also it's learning me how to be leading for the hospital and its people to help Brandon to become even a better place than it is.
The Youth Rise Leadership Program is a collaboration between Westmount Immigrant Services, the Urban Alliance on Race Relations, and the City of Brandon. It is Fringe time again. Winnipeg's 38th annual Fringe Festival is underway at Old Market Square. This year's theme, Choose Your Own Fringe Adventure, and you can choose from 140 shows in downtown venues. Fringe Fest manager Tori Pop says there's something for everyone.
We always say take a risk, see something that you think you might be interested, but you haven't heard too much about. Fringe is an adventure. It's an adventure about having fun and seeing something new and experiencing the festival and Winnipeg in the summer.
Pop says it takes more than 700 volunteers to get the festival running. The Fringe continues for the next 11 days. And a wholesome pop star of the 1950s and 60s has died.
Who's sorry now? Who's sorry now?
Connie Francis with Who's Sorry Now. Francis was a top performer of the pre-Beatles era, rarely off the charts from 1957 to 1964, appealing to both young people and adults. Connie Francis was 87 years old.
Who's crying too?
You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. We're at about 37 minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app, and of course on our CBC Manitoba YouTube page. Abby Ediemi back in studio for an update on the forecast.
Good morning. Good morning once again. We have smoke impacting most of the regions today. However, we just need to focus on this air quality warning in place for much of central Manitoba and northern Manitoba this morning. Talking about the PAR, Flin Flon, Thompson, surrounding regions in that area. We're looking at smoke in the air and it will be impacting you. And towards the southeastern corner of the province, all the way towards the Pine Falls, they're also affected. Smoke in these areas making the air really, really unhealthy. We're talking about the AQHI around +10. So you need to take it easy out. The risk is high for everyone. It's best to stay indoors if you can, and I'd advise to avoid outdoors activities when you notice the heavy smoke blow your way, because this will change from hour to hour. You may be thinking it's not in your zone now, but it's definitely in the air in that region. Winnipeg at this time, 10 degrees. We already have the sunny conditions outside. We noticed some fog patches earlier. That's lifting. That would leave behind a mix of sun and clouds. Through the morning, winds will stay light from the south, and we're warming up to a high around 23 degrees in Winnipeg today. In the Pembina Valley region, Morden, Winkler, Alton, and Morris, down to the Emerson border, we're looking at temperatures around 10 and 12 degrees at this time. We also noticed some fog patches in that area, but that should be clearing, making a way for a mix of sun and clouds today. We'll see the highs reaching around 23 with a touch of humidity in the air. And for tonight, you see temperatures in that region cool off to around 10 degrees. We head west now. Brandon is mostly sunny, 7 degrees. We spotted fog in that area also. That should be clearing. The day will bring a mix of sun and clouds, warming up to 23 degrees. In the Parkland region, 9 degrees and sunny in Dauphin and nearby areas. Talking about Minnedosa all the way down to Riding Mountain. We're looking at a mix of sun and clouds today. Now, once this morning fog clears off, that's what you should enjoy, a mix of sun and clouds. 23 degrees, that's the high for today. It's going to be mild to breezy from the south later today. And then you'd enjoy some clear evening, and overnight you see temperatures drop down to around 9 degrees with some clouds rolling in overnight. In Gimli, we're seeing 11 degrees right now. We also spotted fog there. That should lift as you get into the morning, and then we'll see a pleasant mix of sun and clouds through the day with highs around 23. The winds will be mild from the south. The PAR, Flin Flon, Thompson, surrounding areas. The PAR at this point, we're seeing 12 degrees with smoky skies and a very high air quality risk this morning. It's going to be more like a sunny to start, but then cloudy conditions will roll in and more smoke will build in that region. We do have a good chance of showers in the forecast and a risk of thunderstorms. The high today will reach 24, though with the humidity it's going to be feeling a bit warmer than that. Thompson is at 14 degrees right now. We also have smoke in that region with an air quality warning in effect and a very high health risk level. Expect a mix of sun and clouds this morning and a slight chance of showers or thunderstorms later in the day. High will get to 23 degrees. And then further north in Churchill, 12 degrees, mostly cloudy this morning. The skies will clear by the noon period, and then you would enjoy some sunshine and a transition to a mix of sun and clouds as you get late into the afternoon period. Winds will be coming from the northwest, and then it gets breezy and it gets to ease later in the day. Churchill only gets to see 18 degrees today. So across board, the skies range from smoky and unsettled in the northern part of the province to sunnier and calm down south. Temperatures sit in the low teens this morning, and it's going to be climbing to the mid-20s through the day. But smoke and poor air quality remains a concern in the central, the northern, and the southeastern part of the province today. Winnipeg, we're going to see a mix of sun and clouds, warming up to 23 degrees.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Abby Adiemi on the controls today. Sierra Sanders is our studio director following the commute. Good morning.
Good morning, Faith. Very quiet on the commuter line this morning. Not many things developing out there, so things are moving along out there. Just wanted to mention a construction closure on Taylor. So all eastbound and westbound lanes on Taylor between Lindsay Street to Renfrew are closed for street construction. And this project is expected to go on until the 21st, which is Monday. So a little bit of a shorter project, but still a little bit of a bigger closure there. So you just want to keep that in mind and find an alternate route if possible for you, if that is on your main commute in the morning. So that's a closure on Taylor, all eastbound and westbound lanes between Lindsay Street and Renfrew closed for street construction. If there is anything slowing you down out there, or maybe you see something good, maybe something good's happening to you out there on the road, you're welcome to give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Sierra Sanders, our studio director here on the program. We're at 18 minutes before 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. Many of our listeners are probably aware that Manitoba is a hub for Hollywood films. All you need to do is walk around the Exchange District this summer and see a closed-down street, a large film crew shooting something that might involve a car or a stunt. But making those shots can be costly. So to save money, production companies often have to shoot in a ground-level virtual production studio using the Unreal Engine. It's the same tech used in shows like The Mandalorian and Call of Duty. There weren't any of those studios available in this province until now. The CBC's Jim Agapito got a sneak peek of the new Avro XR studio in Winnipeg.
My name is Austin Mackay, and we are here at Avro XR Studios. This studio is actually a partnership between two Manitoba-based companies, Copilot XR and EventPro. We come from two very similar worlds, but in differing spaces. EventPro specializes in live events and LED, and we specialize in virtual productions. So we've brought these two specialties together to create Avro XR Studio. This space is Manitoba's first ground-level virtual production studio. So you can drive a car right into this space. You don't have to worry about using green screen. You can see where you are. The actors can see where they are in this scene. No one has to imagine what they're seeing. A lot of those effects can be done, or those preliminary effects can be done on the LED wall. So on our cinema camera here, we have the Moses Star Tracker Pro, and this is, an industry standard for camera tracking. So this has a camera that shoots up and can see all of these stars on the ceiling. So these are reflective stickers that basically help position the camera tracker in sort of space and time, and sends that tracking data to Unreal Engine and pairs it all up with the camera. So this is sort of the special tool that makes virtual production possible.
Wow, this is a crazy amount of LED walls. Like, how many do you have here?
So we have 144 individual LED cabinets. Those consist of, 4 LED modules inside of them. So, but 144 LED tiles here, spanning from 30 feet wide to 16 feet high. They're all sort of programmed in a way that allows us to do different types of frame rates. So we could do up to 120 frames per second in the studio.
Well, what are we seeing here? And it's interesting to see that there's some masking on the screen. What's happening here?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're seeing here is actually an interactive 360-degree environment that is connected to the camera and the camera tracker here. So whenever the camera moves, it actually changes the perspective correctly in the 360-degree environment. So you're able to, film as if you're in it. And what you're seeing around it actually is, this is the frustum. So you're able to see exactly what the camera is actually seeing itself. And then anything outside of that is sort of, blacked out. So you don't have to see that. It doesn't have to render it as much. So the computers can use its processing power on what we're actually seeing on the camera.
Is this city like Toronto? What city is this behind us?
This is actually a completely simulated environment called Modern City.
It was so fun.
What we're doing behind me right now is a car processing shot, where if you were to do it in the real world, you would need to get insurance, you need a trailer with a car on it, you need your actors to be in that car, you need to drive around the city, you need to close down streets, the proper insurance necessary for doing all of this. You also have to factor in the time of day. You have to factor in what city this is taking place in. If you come into the studio for a day or two, however long you need it for, you can pick any city you want, any lighting, any time of day. The possibilities of doing these sorts of shots are sort of endless. All right, Jim, why don't we turn off the house lights and get you in that car?
Really?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, I want to see what this magic is. I feel like I'm in a video game here, Austin. Like I'm in a convertible. This interior is red leather, and it's an 82 Z28 Camaro, correct?
Yeah, I think 81 maybe, but
81,
yeah.
Okay. And this is cool. So I see the guys around me are what are they doing here?
Well, they're setting up lighting so that we can get, simulate sort of natural reflections.
Yeah, and I guess like here, they're basically like some daylight. You have different kinds of light to basically make the environment, modern world behind us.
Exactly. Cars passing by, street lights, anything, trying to really get those live reflections, because those live reflections are what really sell this process. We're able to have some the LED wall here playing what they're seeing, so they can actually look at what they're passing by as they're driving.
Oh yeah, and it makes it really interactive, so it just makes the acting right on point.
Exactly. Companies like us that want to try these things, you'd have to travel anywhere else in the world. In a lot of our places in Canada, you'd have to go to Toronto or Vancouver to do something like this. And once you add those costs together, it makes more sense to have something like this in the city. Manitoba has one of North America's leading film production tax credits, and having a space like this dedicated to virtual production that can be used on multiple types of production really opens the doors for producers and creators of all kinds to take advantage of that tax credit here in Manitoba. Our hope is to make this one of the most accessible virtual production studios in Canada, if not all of North America.
That is the CBC's Jim Agapito bringing us that piece. He was at the new Avro XR studio in Winnipeg. We're at 12 and a half minutes before 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. A tune now that might bring a smile to your face. Here's Winnipeggers Rusty Robot with Ice Cream Truck. That is Rusty Robot from Winnipeg with Ice Cream Truck.
It's an honor to have you at the White House.
The stories that matter.
The opportunity is in the partnership.
As they happen.
There are some places that are never for sale.
And what they mean to you.
But never say never. Never say never.
For news you can trust, stay with CBC News.
9 minutes before 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, I'm Faith Fundal. Nobody likes to see their vehicle being towed away, and that is what happened to Tiffany Schritt last weekend. Her truck, a Ford F-150, was parked in front of her home in Transcona when it went missing. But what really shocked her was finding out later that it was stolen, it seems, by someone in a tow truck. Tiffany joins us now on the line. Welcome to the program. Hello.
Hi.
Walk us through how you and your husband found out that your truck was missing.
It's actually my husband's truck. So it was parked on the street. We were, going to go to the lake. We usually have the truck parked at the lake in the summertime. So we had brought it home for this week to bring some supplies out. And when my husband got home on around 5:30 on Friday, he walked through the door and asked where his truck was. And I was like, what do you mean? Where's your truck?
Right. And so so then you were having this conversation and you decide we should probably check the security footage. What did you see when you looked?
Yeah, we checked the security footage. It took a little bit for us to find anything because it just senses when vehicles go by, and we saw a tow truck at first, didn't think anything of it until a few minutes later in our feed, it showed a tow truck backing up and lifting our truck up and driving away.
Did you think when the tow truck picked up your vehicle, did you think it was a theft?
No, we really didn't know what to think. We were like, were we not supposed to be parked there? But there was still other vehicles on the street, so it just seemed really suspicious. That truck has been long paid for with my husband's grandmother.
Right, so
that was a gift to her. Yeah,
it wasn't like you were worried that it might have been repossessed or something like that.
No, not at all. No, it was an older vehicle. It was a 2003. Like, you would never have thought an older vehicle like that wouldn't be of use to somebody.
So here you were, you see this video, you see a tow truck picking it up, you have a chat with your husband thinking, well, it's paid off, so it's not repossessed. I don't think it's parked illegally. Did you call the city and tow truck companies? What'd they say?
We did, and there was nothing recorded. There was no tows in the area. We did call the police right after that. They also checked all the towing companies, and they just confirmed that there was no tow orders in the area.
So while you were waiting, you're confused about why a tow truck might take your truck. Talk about this truck, because I understand that it has a lot of sentimental value for you and your husband. It was gifted.
It was gifted by his grandmother, who has now since passed. So it just has a lot of sentimental value to him. When we first met, we went on a date in his truck through a car wash, which is, was romantic.
Yeah.
Why I fell in love with him, right? But yeah, and we just every summer we go out to the lake. We put our pontoon in the water. Like, it's been there through a lot of things with us, and it's very useful.
So fast forward to not long ago, police saying that officers arrested 2 suspects in connection with a string of vehicle thefts in Transcona. When you heard about that, what did you think?
Oh, it was like relief finally, because it's not just me that's affected. It's other people in this community as well that have lost their vehicles. And I'm just really, really hopeful that they will find them, because that for me and for us, for instance, that truck means more to us is worth more to us than what it would be to, say, MPI.
Right, to write it off, for example.
Right, exactly. What
have you heard from the police? What are they saying to you?
Nothing as of yet. The last we heard was prior to them arresting these 2 individuals. So we're still waiting for an update, and I'm hoping they're just investigating to find out where these other vehicles are.
Tiffany, if the folks who might have been involved, or someone might know your truck, where your truck is, or where your husband's truck is, what's your appeal to them to bring it forward?
I just hope if somebody does see it or see any of the other ones that are missing, that they do let the police know. I posted on social media for that reason, just to let the community know and make sure that everybody was aware, because it's something that you would never think would happen that way.
What does your truck look like? I know that there are folks on CBC Manitoba YouTube stream that can see where at least see part of the video. But how would you describe the truck?
It's a black Ford F-150 with silver trim, and it had a metal rack on the back of it to carry other items.
Tiffany, thanks for making time today to talk about this, and I hope they find this truck as well. Take care.
I really do. Thank you so much.
That's Tiffany Schritt, resident in Transcona. Her husband's truck was taken by a tow truck last Friday. Police say that they've arrested 2 suspects in connection with a series of vehicle thefts, also seizing 2 tow trucks. No other details have been released saying that the investigation is ongoing. You can read more about this story and see a photo of this truck that we're talking about at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Just before the top of the hour, let's head to your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. And Heather Wells joining us. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a political observer says voters in Western Manitoba no doubt have been noticing the NDP moves in their region. Premier Wab Kinew was in Brandon yesterday announcing funding to train doctors in Brandon. It was the 5th appearance by the Premier or his cabinet in Southwest Manitoba since May. All of this at a time when a by-election is expected to be called in Spruce Woods. The Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs says she is hopeful going into today's summit with the Prime Minister. Mark Carney is sitting down with more than 600 Indigenous leaders from across the country to discuss Bill C-5, Carney's legislation to build major projects. We'll hear more on that coming up on World Report, and more coming up as well at 8:30.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
It's Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. I'm Faith Wendell here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app, and of course on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Magandang umaga, good morning. Lots to come in our next half hour of the program. A team of scientists has been chasing storms right across the U.S. We'll find out what they hope to learn from collecting, measuring, and sometimes even eating, yes, eating hailstones. That's coming up in our next half hour of the program. Expecting a mix of sun and cloud for much of the listening region. High of 23 degrees today for pretty much everywhere except for Churchill, where we're expecting sun and cloud mixture clearing near noon and a high of 18 degrees. If you see issues on your commute this morning, 2047-883-093, 2047-883-093. I'm Faith Wendell, along with the team here on Information Radio, Abby Adeyemi, Sierra Sanders, and our streaming team as well. Stay tuned. World Report is standing by.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
The British rapper Little Simz has performed for thousands of people around the world, even took home the coveted Mercury Prize for Best British Album in 2022. So why, for her new album, did she almost quit music? Little Simz will be here to tell you her story.
I don't think anyone's ever seen anything like me. I have to do this, you know?
That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current.
I'm Megan Williams. Canada's top scientist is calling for more research into UFOs and for people to be able to report sightings without fear of stigmatization. Aliens or not, a look at what's going on in our skies on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Today's C5 summit in Ottawa could set the tone for government Indigenous relations for the rest of Mark Carney's time as Prime Minister.
We're starting as we mean to go on, which means engaging
with First Nations so that the projects, as we're building our nation, we're building all nations.
Carney's government passed a bill allowing energy and infrastructure projects to be approved faster before Indigenous consultation. And today, Carney will have to defend that move to more than 600 First Nations leaders. As David Thurton reports, some chiefs are on board with the new legislation, but many are not.
Let me say this plainly. Bill C-5 violates the spirit and intent of our treaties.
Angela Levasseur is the chief of the Nissequoiastic Cree Nation in Manitoba. Ahead of the meeting with the Prime Minister, she and other First Nation leaders made their concerns known.
Bill C-5 gives the federal government sweeping powers to push through so-called projects of national interest, such as pipelines, ports, and transmission lines.
Not all chiefs at the gathering feel that way.
It's very simple. I'm here to support the bill.
Clarence Easter is the chief of the Chimamawin Cree Nation, also in Manitoba.
He's willing to work with us, and we're willing to be there to work with him, and we can build this country together.
The government has signaled it has a strong desire to fast-track Indigenous-owned or backed projects. But that eagerness runs up against this harsh reality.
Really, the big barrier is a lot of Indigenous communities, as a legacy of Canada's colonial past, do not have access to traditional capital.
Fernando Mello works with Indigenous communities at the Canadian Renewable Energy Association.
They cannot put necessarily assets up for sale. Any of the land that is held in trust for them by the Crown, they can't put forward as collateral for a loan to start a business.
Carney's need for speed faces roadblocks, not just on the Indigenous rights file, but potentially on the financial front as well. David Thornton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Remember when Pierre Poilievre told CBC News he lost his Ottawa riding because he was honest about plans to cut the federal bureaucracy? The head of Canada's largest federal public sector union is disputing that. She says there is another reason the Conservative leader didn't win his seat. As Benjamin Lopez-Steven reports, she says a lot of it had to do with Donald Trump.
I think it's more than just the jobs. I think it's about protecting Canada.
Sharon D'Souza says Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's explanation for why he lost his riding of Carleton is too simplistic. She's the national president of the Public Service Alliance of Canada. The union represents more than 200,000 people, including federal workers. Last week, Poilievre said groups like hers cost him his seat over his pledge to cut federal workers.
And they ran a very aggressive campaign, particularly the public sector unions did, to defeat me on that basis.
D'Souza says voters linked Poilievre to Donald Trump and his mass firings.
If I look at the bigger picture, if Trump wasn't elected, if Doge didn't get public services, do I think that would have influenced the federal election? Without a doubt. It changed the game.
D'Souza suggests Poilievre may need to do more reflection.
I feel like maybe, it's easier to blame the federal public service than it is to say maybe I'm out of touch with those constituents.
The Conservative leader argues he was honest about his plan to cut federal workers, and the Liberals were not. D'Souza says she's hopeful the Prime Minister will find other ways to save money. Benjamin Lopez-Steven, CBC News, Ottawa.
Mr. Blumenthal, Ms. Blunt-Rochester, Mr. Booker.
An overnight vote in the U.S. Senate brings the Trump administration's $9 billion cuts package one step closer to reality. Senators narrowly passed the so-called rescissions package just before 3 a.m. Eastern Time. It cancels already approved funding for programs that help foreign countries with disease, war, and natural disasters, and funding to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. The organization supports NPR, PBS, and their member stations. The Senate vote is seen as a victory for Trump and his promise to reduce federal spending. The House of Representatives will hold a final vote on the package later today. Thousands of people in Manitoba are still waiting to find out when they can go home. The province's worst wildfire season in 30 years has uprooted families and entire communities. The relocation has been an adjustment for those who were also forced to leave their way of life behind. As Karen Pauls reports, they may be far away from their traditional land, but for some of them, a little taste of home is making the situation more bearable.
Volunteers cut up huge chunks of fresh moose meat, part of a traditional meal for First Nations elders forced from their homes by wildfires. Grace Moss is with the Manitoba Kiiwetinoong Okimakanak Harvester Program.
You are what you eat, right? Food is life.
During the first mass evacuation last month, local groups teamed up to source meat, duck, fish, and vegetables. They're feeding about 200 elders every day. Lester Balfour is with Food Matters Manitoba.
When you're in the city so long and you're craving the wild food and home-cooked meals, and they've been here so long, so maybe give them a little bit of that taste of home, I guess you could say. And
roughly 12,000 Manitobans are out of their homes due to wildfires. 1 in 10 are living in group shelters set up in indoor soccer complexes and hockey rinks. Some show me photos of the food they've been getting: wrinkled wieners, dry potatoes, wilted lettuce. Which is why these elders are so thrilled to get the moose meal delivered, complete with Saskatoon apple crumble for dessert.
Look at that.
Teresa Biggity of the Matthias Colomb Cree Nation has been living in this Winnipeg hotel since the end of May.
We like their food, MKO, when they come and feed us.
It's a piece of home, some comfort, at a time when all of that feels in short supply. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
RCMP are naming the man they arrested for allegedly stealing a plane from the Victoria International Airport. 39-year-old Shahir Kasim has been charged with 1 count of hijacking. The Mounties say they're still investigating, but they believe the suspect had an ideological motive to disrupt airspace. There are reports he posted on social media saying he was a messenger of Allah sent to save humanity from climate change. More Canadians are getting injured by e-scooters. A new report shows those injuries are increasingly happening to people not taking proper care while riding or getting hit while on one. The CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa has more on how riders can stay safe.
Everyone sharing the road has a role to play in keeping it safe.
Tanya Khan is a manager at the Canadian Institute for Health Information. Their recent data shows that between April 2023 and March 2024, about 1,000 people were hospitalized from scooter injuries. Half of those were related to e-scooters, a 32% increase from the year before.
Some unintentional injuries are really predictable and preventable.
Helmet use is very poor.
Daniel Rosenfield is an emergency room doctor at Sick Kids in Toronto. He says on average it's 12-year-olds and boys in their teens coming into the ER with injuries that range from minor to severe, like head trauma and internal bleeding.
The majority of the catastrophic injuries, though, are caused when a car hits a person on an e-scooter or they hit a car at high speed.
Parents should keep in mind that these are not toys.
Pamela Fuseli is the president of injury prevention charity Parachute. She says young kids shouldn't be riding or jumping on with another person. Each province has their own e-scooter regulations, like how old riders need to be and who should wear a helmet.
Enforcement is such a key component to preventing injuries.
To stay safe, she says all riders should wear helmets and follow the rules of the road. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Toronto.
New Jersey singer Connie Francis has died.
You can ask the flowers. I sit for hours telling all the bluebirds, the bill and coo birds, pretty little baby, I'm so in love with you.
Francis had a string of hits in the 1950s and 60s. She sold an estimated 200 million records worldwide. Her song Pretty Little Baby is all over TikTok right now. Francis has a whole new set of listeners decades after her first hit. Connie Francis' career was interrupted by personal tragedy on a few occasions, and she was diagnosed with manic depression in the late 1970s. Her publicist says she died after being in hospital earlier this month. Connie Francis was 87 years old. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Magandang umaga, good morning Manitoba. Faith Wundal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Coming up in this half hour of the program, a team of scientists has been chasing storms right across the U.S. We're going to shortly find out why the folks have been what they're hoping to learn from collecting, measuring, and sometimes even eating hailstones. It's coming up next here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Stay tuned. First, though, let's head to your CBC Winnipeg local news desk, and Heather Wells joining us now. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the latest military-led evacuation in northern Manitoba may be complete, but Canadian Armed Forces members haven't left yet. They're sticking around in case people need to be airlifted from St. Teresa Point and Wisagamack. Operation Lentis Air Task Force Commander Craig Greeley says it was intense getting thousands of people to safety. And Canada needs a transparent agency in charge of managing reports of UFOs made by the public. That's according to a report released this week by Canada's Office of the Chief Science Advisor. Winnipeg science writer Chris Rutkowski was consulted for that report. We're going to hear from him in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. We're at 12 minutes after 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. Abby Adiemi has been following the forecast and the smoke.
The smoke, yes, the smoke. Air quality warnings remain in place for much of, the northern part of the province, the southeastern part of the province, the central part of the province. We're talking about the Par, Flin Flon, Thompson, Island Lake, all the way towards Oxford House. We are seeing smoke in that region. This is also impacting the southeastern part of the province, where we see smoke very, very thick in these areas. We're talking about Beset, Pine Falls, and even nearby Provincial Park. Smoke in these areas is expected to cause poor and very, very poor, not just poor visibility, but poor air qualities in those regions, and things may change quickly from hour to hour. Now, during this period of heavy smoke, I'd say everybody's at risk. It's not just people with health conditions, so you need to take care if you are outside, especially little kids. They don't really know when to come inside, so please look out for the young ones outside when the smoke is really impacting you. Winnipeg this morning, 12 degrees. We're seeing the sun outside. We're expecting more of like a mix of sun and clouds through the day with light winds coming from the south. We'll see highs near 23 degrees, and the humidity would just be a touch of humidity here and there. Tonight, we cool off to 12 degrees. Across the southern part of the province, the Interlake all the way down to the Pembina Valley and Brandon, Dauphin, Gimli. We saw fog in those regions earlier, but that's fading, and we'll see more like a mix of sun and clouds with temperatures warming close to 24 degrees in those regions. While up north, as mentioned, we have smoke continuing to affect visibility and air quality in those areas, but we're seeing temperatures close to 15 degrees. It will be a mix of sun and clouds today with a chance of showers or thunderstorm in a few areas, especially near the Par and Thompson today. Highs would reach 24, while Churchill is going to stay cooler around 18 degrees later today. Overnight, we'll just see temperatures get cool off to around 10 degrees. So smoke is the concern today, and highs near 24 in most of the region. Winnipeg right now, 12 degrees, and it looks nice outside.
Yep, sure does. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Abby Adiemi on the controls today. Sierra Sanders following the commute. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, it's for sure been a nice commute by the sound of it. I haven't received any calls on the commuter line this morning talking about any developments or anything like that. So things are moving smoothly along there on your commute. But if that's not the case, we still have a little bit of time left in the show. You can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. The number is 204-788-3093, or tell me something good. 204-788-3093.
15 minutes after 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. A team of researchers spent 6 weeks having vehicles' bodies pelted by hail. The study, called Project Ice Chip, is the first hail-focused study in more than 4 decades. Those researchers traveled right across the U.S. to chase storms and collect hailstones. Becky Adams-Seelan is lead principal investigator, joining us via Zoom from Omaha, Nebraska. Becky, welcome to the program. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Why would you subject your bodies and equipment to that?
Well, okay, that's not fully accurate. If we were doing a good job, we got out of the way before the hail got there. So we're, yeah, that was only if a whole lot of things went wrong all in a row did we end up with anyone or vehicles getting hit. But
and of course, a big part of this is the chasing storms part of it. There is a purpose to this, of course, right?
Yes, exactly. Right. So as you mentioned, it's been over 40 years in the U.S., I should note, since we've had a hail-focused field campaign. And in fact, there are just number one, so many technological advancements in instrumentation and different types of measurements in that 40 years. But also the impacts of hail on us have just increased. It's become a lot more evident that some of the things we don't know about hail is really causing a lot of problems. And it became evident that it was very much time and that a field campaign could answer a lot of these questions. I did say U.S. focused because in Canada, the Northern Hail Project has actually been ongoing for 3 years now, I believe. Mm-hmm. And they were quite instrumental in giving us advice on how we should structure our campaign.
What's your sense of why there basically isn't a good or valid system for predicting this kind of thing in the U.S. and why hail isn't studied as often as other phenomenon might be?
Right. So we in general are actually quite good at predicting if hail of about, say, 2-3 centimeters is going to fall. That's kind of right around the level where it's been determined to be severe. And by the U.S. National Weather Service. And so that we're generally pretty skillful at. It's just anything beyond that one factor, anything like hail larger than that, or maybe large concentrations of hail, or maybe the hail is going to be blown by wind. Any of those things we don't really know, and we don't really know how to translate those types of characteristics into damage. In terms of why it took that long, many reasons. One of which is, frankly, hail doesn't injure people. It doesn't kill people like tornadoes do. So there was a lot of focus on tornadoes first to kind of get that warning system down, which makes sense. Second, though, is that hail didn't really start hitting people's pocketbooks until maybe the last 2 decades. And then suddenly things just sort of took off, where we had a perfect storm of hail, kind of some poor roofing materials, expanding urban sprawl, and now suddenly there's a lot of property damage every year due to hail, and insurance companies are really starting to feel the pinch. It's getting passed on in higher premiums, and so now, now it's hurting people's pocketbooks. Now we kind of need to research this and figure out ways we can trim these costs.
Right, and when you're talking about damage, I mean, you're talking about in the billions, right? Not just one or two, like a lot.
Yes, yeah. In the U.S., it is regularly $20 billion a year, and in the past 2 years, it hit up over $50 billion in insurance claims just due to hail, and that's just in the U.S. There's been multi-billion-dollar events outside of the U.S. too. Several in Canada, several in Australia, Switzerland. It's a worldwide problem.
Must be exciting. Chasing and running into hailstorms for 6 weeks. What was that like?
Yes.
I use the word exciting, but maybe there are better descriptors.
No, it was quite exciting for me. I could understand, others may not feel the same, but yes, it was quite exciting. So we had a whole armada of instrumentation. Up to 15 different institutions took part in this. And so we had something like 30 or 40 different vehicles. We include things like mobile radar, where we can go out and observe the hailstorms as they form. It includes things like soundings and drones, so that we can take profiles of the atmosphere around the storm. And then it included a whole bunch of ground instrumentation, where the basic idea is we run out with all this instrumentation. We set up maybe a 20-mile long array, or I guess 30-kilometer long array out ahead of the storm, and then get out of the way and let the storm pass over it. And then we come back afterwards as quick as we can safely and collect the hail. But that instrumentation includes things like hail pads, just basically pieces of styrofoam that the hail can indent on, or as fancy as things like hail cameras, where it can actually take an image of the hailstone as it's falling, and we can see, is it tumbling? How fast it's falling? Is it being blown by wind? All these things. So also impact astrometers. We measure how hard the hail hits the ground, so we can try to translate that to damage. Right. So yeah, do all of that. We would do it twice for each storm. Get out of the way, then collect hail. We have 26 boxes of hail now in our cold lab in Boulder.
How heavy?
That we're working
heavy
to
is
analyze. That's heavy. I think shipping one of those boxes back cost us about $400. So yeah, they're heavy.
Take me back to there was a particular storm that I know stood out to you. Take me back to June 20th to the southwest corner of North Dakota. What was that storm like?
Oh, right. Yes, that was down near Bowman. Well, personally, I was excited because that was the first storm that I was kind of the lead coordinator for. And so I was telling everyone where to go. And so that's exciting for me personally. But in terms of scientifically, the storm ended up moving a lot more slowly than we thought it would. So we had more time to get everything in place. So not only did we get kind of these fancy ground array instruments that I had been talking about in place, and it went right over them like we were hoping it would. We also were able to kind of tag some other members of the campaign in who maybe weren't usually doing groundwork, but could pinch hit for us. And so we actually got 6 different roads, observations from 6 roads that crossed the hail swath. So we could see both, what it's doing, what that storm was doing all along along its hail swath, but also in time. And that's the most observations that I think have ever been had ever from a storm. And so I'm just highly looking forward to studying that and understanding what made the type of hail being produced change in time. How did the storm make the hail? All sorts of great stuff.
Becky, do you think your family was surprised when you told them that you would want to study hail and storms when you were young?
No, because I loved storms from a very early age. There was a book written by some tornadoes that hit a town near mine in Nebraska called Night of the Twisters. So I, of course, read that when I was young. And then we got caught away from home when the storm was incoming one time, and we had to race it home. And I got very excited about that. So yes, it was not a surprise to anyone that this is what I was doing.
Becky, before you go, was it a scientific? Was it for science when one of your researchers sampled some of the hail by eating it or tasting it?
No, it was not. But hey, it makes a great picture, I guess.
Becky, I can tell how much you love this work. Thank you for doing what you do and for making time today. Take care.
Thank you. And I do want to thank the U.S. National Science Foundation for being willing to fund us.
I'm looking forward to hearing more about your research. It will have an impact. Take care.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks.
That's Becky Adams-Seelan, lead principal investigator on Project Ice Chip.
As wildfires impact our province, keep up to date with CBC. For the latest information, listen to CBC Radio 1. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba or the CBC News app. For people who have a limited data plan or are running into spotty mobile service on the road, visit cbc.ca/lite. That's cbc.ca/LITE.
Premier Wap Kinew says the full cost of the province's wildfire response is already in the tens of millions, and the number could continue to rise as wildfire season continues. He spoke at a news conference yesterday.
Our team at the provincial level working really hard with them, the local leadership, working really hard with the federal government, First Nations organizations to ensure that people can stay safe, but also stay in comfortable accommodations. At the same time, I am the Premier for the entire province, and there's many other Manitobans who have many other needs. And so we have a balancing act that we're trying to pull off here, which is how are we going to accommodate this number of some 12,000 Manitobans who've been put out of their homes, while also ensuring that Manitobans can still go about the other business to keep our economy moving, to keep our society functioning. And the states of emergency are not supposed to be easy, and a wildfire season that sets records in all the wrong ways is certainly not going to lead to any easy calls to be made. But so far, I think the approach of working together and a lot of goodwill from Manitobans has really helped.
How has the second round of evacuations changed from the first one?
Well, it's the communities. Many of them are the same, and so the level of weariness, I think, is compounded. Like, imagine you're sleeping on a cot in the Thompson Rec Center for 3 weeks. You got to go home for a week or two, and then now you've been in a hotel in Brandon for going on a few weeks as well. That would wear anybody down. Plus, you add the stress of not knowing what you're going to go home to when the evacuation order is lifted. So I think one thing is we're just dealing with people who've had a really tough time, and we're just trying to be sensitive and compassionate. The biggest thing I would say is this: the ultimate thing we want to see is people go home safely. Until that happens, yeah, it's going to be a challenge with hotels and congregate shelters and people stressed, and the human dynamic that works its way out. But the good news is that some of the situations with the firefighting this week, we've been able to see some progress. Hopefully we'll see more progress soon. And in the meantime, just, trying to be patient and hear people's concerns and figure out how do we just connect things so nobody falls through the cracks.
Is the province going to review how this emergency response has gone this year?
Oh, 100%, yeah. The climate is changing, right? That is very clear. Like, we're there in a wildfire fighting helicopter sortie with somebody with more than 3 decades of experience. They said this has never happened, in terms of the consecutive years of wildfire activity. And this person's telling, maybe once every 8 years they'd have a big burn, and big burn would maybe be a few 100,000 hectares. This year it's 1 million hectares, right? And that's coming after another big burn season last year. And hey, you don't need to be an expert in Manitoba hydro reservoir levels or the ag industry to know it's been dry this year. So what does that mean, right? Again, our province is going to have to adapt to many things at the same time. One of them is the impacts of a changing climate. At the end of this wildfire season, we're going to have a review internally, not just in terms of the wildfire fighting effort, though that's going to be an important part of it, but also in terms of the emergency social services and the coordination to keep people safe. And we're also going to invite people in from the outside. Give us that outside set of eyes, the expertise. What do we need to do on forest management? What do we need to do in terms of shelter in the future? And again, let's not forget that these lessons need to be transposed to other natural disasters. God forbid we ever see something like COVID happen again. Nobody wants to see that. We're not going down that road, but we got to prepare just in case. So again, some of the questions that I think you're raising today will need to be posed, not just in terms of like how many rooms, how many evacuees tonight, tomorrow. At the end of this wildfire season, we're going to have to look at, is it realistic to expect us to scale up open hotel rooms every natural disaster season? Is that the expectation? If so, what are we going to do to create more hotel rooms, right? Or is there another large-scale sheltering opportunity that we need to be able to have access to in Manitoba? Or is there a combination of fire mitigation, investment in northern infrastructure like roads and larger runways that can accommodate Hercules aircraft that are well suited to large-scale movement of people that we need to make in combination with sheltering, right? So it's a really, complex, multifaceted equation that we're trying to solve here. Part of what we know about moving people around the province, though, is that it's not just heads on beds. People need support. The first people to be evacuated are often people on dialysis or with other complex medical needs. Does the community that's stepping up have the healthcare capacity to be able to support evacuees like that? Folks living through a stressful situation, everything from childcare to harm reduction and other kind of supports, the ability to debrief. Part of the complexity of housing folks is not just finding a space.
Premier Rob Canoe speaking with reporters in Brandon yesterday. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is 13 degrees right now. Mix of sun and clouds today. Still slightly cool for this time of year. A high of 23. The Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs says she is hopeful going into today's summit with the Prime Minister. Mark Carney is sitting down with more than 600 Indigenous leaders from across the country to discuss Bill C-5, the legislation to fast-track major projects. Kyra Wilson says leaders stress they want to be able to protect their land and water.
As First Nations, we need to be able to create our own laws, create our own standards, create our own regulations, because as we see right now, there are industry that should be consulting and receiving consent from First Nations, and they're not.
Going into the meeting this morning, the Prime Minister says he is there to listen, calling it a first step in a process. A political scientist in Western Manitoba questions the timing of a flurry of NDP spending commitments in the area. Premier Rob Canoe was in Brandon yesterday announcing money to train doctors in Brandon. The NDP has announced or re-announced $334 million in funding for Southwest Manitoba since May. Kelly Saunders at Brandon University says the timing is interesting because a by-election must be called in the Spruce Woods constituency by mid-August. She says it appears the NDP is doing everything it can to woo voters.
This is a long-standing blue riding out here in Spruce Woods. It's only ever been conservative since the riding was created. Right now, I would say the odds are not in favor of the NDP able to flip that seat. But that being said, I mean, the polls certainly are showing that the NDP is gaining support in regions outside of Winnipeg.
Justice Minister Matt Wiebe will be making another announcement in Brandon later this morning. The latest military-led evacuation in northern Manitoba may be complete, but Canadian Armed Forces members haven't left yet. They're sticking around in case people need to be airlifted from St. Teresa Point and Wasagamak. Operation Lentis Air Task Force Commander Craig Greeley says it was intense getting thousands out of Garden Hill. He remembers helping a mother and father and their child escape Puckatawagan in a helicopter.
That family is safe now because of what it is that we did, for the air crew that are here, for what they've done, putting their lives at risk to go into these dangerous communities. And it's, you know, a sense of pride really isn't it. It's just knowing that we were able to contribute to saving Canadians' lives. It was an incredible sense.
Greeley says Hercules aircraft and crews on standby now in Winnipeg can be ready within 30 minutes to 2 hours. A new summer program in Brandon is introducing racialized youth to the world of local government. The Youth Rise Leadership Program gives young people hands-on experience and leadership development. 16-year-old Regina Carlos came to Brandon from the Philippines last June. She wants to take what she's learned to build a career in healthcare. Carlos is also working on an advocacy project focused on mental health.
I really want to focus on that because I think mental health plays a big part in our lives.
Carlos says mental health was not talked about enough in her home country. Canada needs a transparent agency in charge of managing reports of UFOs made by the public. That is according to a report released this week by Canada's Office of the Chief Science Advisor. The Sky Canada Project study suggests there is a need for a cohesive framework to deal with sightings. Winnipeg science writer Chris Rutkowski was consulted for this report.
There is some evidence that there's something really unusual going on in the skies. We just don't have enough information. There is some interesting stuff that's being reported. It doesn't necessarily prove that aliens are visiting us.
Rutkowski has been running the Canadian UFO survey for more than 3 decades, and you can read more about Sky Canada report at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Well, it is a downtown Winnipeg summer tradition. Music kicking off the 38th annual Winnipeg Fringe Festival last night at Old Market Square. For the next 11 days, hundreds of Canadian and international artists will be performing at venues downtown. There's food, drinks, free activities, and street performers for everyone to enjoy. Fringe manager Tori Pop says it's a chance for people to discover what the city has to offer.
You can come down and enjoy bands on the stage, or acts or hosts or folks plugging their shows, maybe hear about something that you're interested in, and that's all free to enjoy. So if you're new to the city and you haven't been around too much, come on down to Old Market Square, and this will be like your foray into the fringe.
The festival sells around 80,000 tickets every year. It runs until July 26th. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Sierra Sanders back for a last look at the commute. Good morning.
Good morning. Just wanted to remind folks about a closure on Taylor. So all eastbound and westbound lanes on Taylor between Lindsay Street and Renfrew are closed for street construction. And this project is only supposed to go until Monday, which might cause you a little bit of a confusion there. So find an alternate route if possible, if that is on your main commute in the morning. So that's a construction closure on Taylor. All eastbound and westbound lanes between Lindsay and Renfrew.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Sierra Sanders there. Abby Ediemi.
It's a cool one across the region this morning. Sun and haze and wildfire smoke still impacting air quality in the central, the northern and the southeastern parts of the province this morning. We're seeing temperatures in the mid-teens right now, but it's going to be a mix of sun and clouds, light winds, and highs close to 24 in most of the regions today. Winnipeg, we are heading to a high of 23, and it's going to be a cool one.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And thanks to the folks who put our show together today, our associate producers, Issa Kixon, Jenna Bedosso, Marshall Hodgins, our current affairs reporter, Jim Agapito, from the news desk, Heather Wells, Alana Cole, Darren Bernhardt, and our live team here, Abby Ediemi, Brad Lilies, Ezeka Abdelatif, and of course, Sierra Sanders. I'm Faith Fundal. Mag-ingat po kayo and take good care. Stay tuned. The Current is standing by.